All right, today we're going to talk about a guy who pretty much reshaped our entire reality. I mean, this quiet genius literally gave us the rulebook for understanding the universe itself. Of course, I'm talking about Sir Isaac Newton. But here's the thing that's so wild. The story we're diving into today, it all starts with this one big question. How on earth does a quiet, lonely kid from the middle of nowhere go on to remake our entire understanding of the universe? I mean, think about that. His story, well, it starts in about the most humble way you can imagine. Okay, so let's set the scene. It's Christmas Day, 1642. Isaac Newton is born, and he's so tiny, so fragile, that literally no one expected him to even make it through the day. But he did. And with him, a mind that was destined to change absolutely everything. You know, before he ever figured out gravity, the first major force that shaped this incredible mind was something way more personal. It was hardship and a whole lot of loneliness. So get this, his dad died before he was even born. And then, when he was just 3 years old, his mom left him with his grandparents. I mean, that kind of abandonment, it leaves a mark, right? He became this super quiet, withdrawn kid who didn't really have friends. Instead, he just dove headfirst into his own imagination. And wow, what an imagination he had. He didn't just daydream to pass the time. Nope, he built things. We're talking miniature windmills, super detailed sundials, water clocks. He even built a little machine that was powered by a mouse. You see, his loneliness wasn't a prison. It was basically his first laboratory. Now, you'd think a guy like this would be top of his class from day one, right? Well, nope. He was actually a pretty average student, kind of unremarkable. That is, until his school bully decided to pick on him and literally pushed him to the ground. And Newton's reaction? It tells you everything you need to know about him. He decided, okay, I'm not going to fight this guy with my fists. I'm going to fight him with my brain. So he just poured all of that energy into his schoolwork, reading every single book he could get his hands on until he became the #1 student in his class. It's such a great lesson, right? When he was challenged, he didn't get louder. He just worked harder. All right, so let's fast forward to the next huge turning point in his life. And this one is wild, because a massive national disaster, we're talking the Great Plague, somehow becomes the spark for some of the biggest scientific breakthroughs in all of human history. So in 1665, the plague gets so bad that Cambridge University has to shut down completely. For most people, this is a total crisis. But for Newton, he saw it as an opportunity. He had to go back to his family home, totally isolated, and suddenly, his mind was just free. Free to wander, to question, to create with zero distractions. It's a great reminder, isn't it? That sometimes the biggest innovations come from those quiet moments of just deep, focused thought. And what he did with that time is just mind-blowing. In about a year and a half, he came up with the foundations of calculus, started working out his laws of motion, figured out that white light is actually made up of a whole spectrum of colors. Oh, and he started thinking really hard about that little thing called gravity. All of that in just 18 months. No wonder they call it his Year of Wonders. Okay, so let's zoom in on a couple of classic stories that really show you how his brain worked. One involves, you guessed it, an apple, and the other involves looking up at the stars. So the story is, of course, legendary. He's just hanging out in his garden, and he sees an apple fall from a tree. I mean, it's something people have seen a billion times, right? But Newton, he doesn't just see it. He asks a question, a really, really big question. Why does it always fall straight down? And then he keeps going. Why not sideways or up? What's the deal? What is pulling it in that one direction always towards the center of the earth? And that's what leads to the billion-dollar question. What is this invisible force? A force that can pull an apple from a tree, but also keep the moon circling the Earth? And boom, right there from that simple little observation, the theory of universal gravitation was born. But his genius wasn't just about thinking big thoughts. He was a builder, a tinkerer. He got super frustrated with how blurry telescopes were back then. But instead of just complaining about it, he figured out the problem. The lenses were messing up the light. So what does he do? He invents a brand new kind of telescope that uses mirrors instead of lenses. The result was this incredibly sharp, clear view of the stars that just blew the minds of the entire scientific world. That alone basically made him famous. So you take all of these world-changing ideas,
calculus, his laws of motion, how light works, gravity, the whole shebang, and he puts it all together into one single book. A book that was going to change science and the world forever. It was called the Principia Mathematica, published in 1687. And it's pretty much considered the single greatest scientific book ever. I mean, what he did in those pages was basically hand humanity the owner's manual for the universe. He gave us the actual math to explain how it all works. Inside, you've got his 3 laws of motion, which you probably learned in school. You've got the law of universal gravitation, and he didn't just state them, he showed the math, proving how these laws controlled the way planets move. Think about this. Before this book, the sky was this big, mysterious, magical place. But after, it was a system, something we could understand and predict. For the very first time, the rules on Earth were the same as the rules in the heavens. So, okay, beyond all the incredible physics and math, what can we actually learn from this guy's life? What are the big lessons we can take away from this legend?
You know, maybe the biggest lesson comes from the man himself. After everything he did, after changing the world, he was still so incredibly humble. He said he felt like a little kid just playing on the beach, finding a few pretty shells here and there, while this huge, great ocean of truth was still out there, completely undiscovered. When you really boil it down, Newton's life really teaches us 3 big things, right? First, that pure curiosity can literally change the world. Second, that good old-fashioned hard work really can beat any challenge. And third, that some of the greatest discoveries in history, they all start with really simple questions.
And really, that's the final takeaway. That's the whole point. The entire universe of scientific discovery, Newton's incredible legacy, and everything we'll ever learn in the future, it all comes down to being brave enough to ask that one simple, powerful question. Why?